Alright, so we have a div here, and I put a checkerboard design on it, and I just named the div box. And then, alright, so we're gonna 3D rotate this div here, and the way that we do this is we set a CSS property of rotate to it. And now I'm gonna set it up, and then I'll explain later what each parameter means. Alright, so we have here a 3D rotation of this box element, and the reason that it 3D rotated in the way that it did was, so we have a rotation along the x and the z axis going at 120 degrees. So more about that. So the first value is the x-axis, and the second value is the y-axis, and the third value is the z-axis, and then the fourth value is simply the amount that you want to rotate the element. So, for example, we have here a rotation of the x and the z-axis going at 120 degrees. So if you set a value, for example, to 0, then you're essentially disengaging that axis. So now, for example, we have the x-axis disengaged, and we have the y-axis disengaged as well. But we do have the z-axis engaged, and that's why you see this rotation over here, which is nothing more than a z-axis rotation of 120 degrees. So if we want to engage an axis, then all we need to do is type in a value, and each value is going to engage it in a different way. I mean, it engages it linearly, so the higher the value, the more it engages it. So for example, if we type in 0.1, you can see that it's barely engaging the x-axis. It's not even noticeable. But if you type in 0.3, now you're starting to see it. And 0.5, there we go. And then if you type in 1, now you can see it's engaged. And so now we have the x-axis engaged, the y-axis disengaged, and the z-axis engaged. And we can have a different ratio of engagement here. So we can have like a more engagement in the x-axis than in the z-axis, and you can play around with it, and we can have a 320 degrees here, so it's more rotation. But where this gets really interesting is when you add it to a hover class. So let's take a look at that, for example. So let's type in our class, so box, and then let's create a pseudo class here of hover. Alright, and now let's take this rotation. Let's make it a little bit nicer first. Alright, now let's take this rotation and then let's put it in the hover. Alright, and now if we hover over the element, you can see we get a 3D transform basically. But let's make it animate, so to make it animate, just set the transition to say 1,000 milliseconds, and then look how cool that is. So now you have a animated 3D transform of an object. So you can use this for a ton of different applications. You can use it for super cool, like engaging website applications.